I'm Jim Collison, and live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on May 1st. Happy May Day, 2015. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available, a very active chat room today that's out there right below the main video window, and you can log into it using any social media account, Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, Yahoo, some of those. So you don't have to create a new account. Really the best way to get your questions into the program, so join us in the chat room if you're listening live. You can also catch the recorded version of this. It's available on our coaches blog. So if you've missed past episodes, you want to do that, you can catch all of those things, as well as if you have questions, you can email us, coaching@gallup.com, or we have a contact form there on the blog page. That's really the one site to remember, coaching.gallup.com. And, of course, don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com. For all your coaching resources and StrengthsFinder training needs, you can also catch the video and both streaming downloadable audio, as well as past shows and our mobile apps. We got tons of stuff out there for you, more than I can explain here. Just head out to the coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Brian Brim is our host today. Brian works as a senior practice consultant with Gallup, also an author, a doctor, a male hand model. He does a lot. He does lots here at Gallup. Brian, thank you for filling in for Jeremy today. Jeremy's out on the road. Thanks for coming in today, and welcome to another Call to Coach.
Great. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. It's very exciting to have Maureen here. It's kind of like, as famous as you are on the webcast, Maureen, it's kind of like having a backup dancer that now has her own show. So we're so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, we were just talking about the voice. I finally went from the background to the foreground. That's funny.
Yeah, so now you're actually sitting in one of the chairs, right?
Yeah, I like it. I'm judging.
I love this. So really excited to dive right in. I know this week we even had some exchanges going on LinkedIn, and some of the other coaches that were excited to get the word out there that you'd be with us today. So love the energy around this. And I'm going to just spend a little bit here up front. I'd love to have you kind of give some introduction about yourself, although it seems like most of the people on the call know you. Tell me a little bit about this journey to Called to Coach, this journey as a coach, and give us a little bit of background about why you're sitting in this seat today.
Yeah, well, first of all, how deeply honored am I to not just be here, but to be here with you, Brian. I did attend one of the Gallup Workplace Summits, and you were one of the speakers, and I've also read a lot of your stuff that's on the Gallup Business Journal, and I also checked you out. You have to validate the people that you're working with, so I spoke to Stash Walsh. He says hello, and he gave me some,
awesome.
And I know you're wonderful, and he just reinforced that. So, my strengths journey is a little bit, I don't know if there's a normal strength journey, but mine feels a little bit odd. I have a BS and MS in mechanical engineering. And so my journey towards understanding who I am began there, and I couldn't be a less effective engineer. I really couldn't be, unless I tried to be. And even then, I'm not sure I could be. And but what I learned when I graduated from engineering and began to work with customers, I learned that I was a terrible engineer problem solver, but I was a great customer problem solver. So looking back on it, I can see that I had ideation, individualization, but that's always in the rearview mirror. When you look back on your success as a person, and now you know your strengths. That's one of the fun things where you go, oh, that's what was going on. And eventually that led to me working in Paris with a French software company, and I went not knowing a word of French and not knowing the French culture per se. And that's where my individualization helped, because individually I loved the French. Right. As a society, I struggled with them just a little bit. So I'm always more of a one-on-one than a group person. I don't belong to fraternities or sororities or anything like that. It just doesn't interest me. I like one-on-one things with people. So I left in engineering, came back. Actually, I discovered my creativity in Paris and came back a photographer and a writer and started my own company. So hence, we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial profile, but I've already been down that road once, and I like it. So, but I have learner and activator, and so I get bored easily. So I've always been interested in leadership, so I switched after I had my career with my own business for about 10 years. I switched to my focus to leadership and business ethics. So I got a master's in leadership and business ethics, and in 2006, as part of that process, I took the Strength Finder for the first time. And it was like a drug for me. It really was. And I instantly began, with friends and family saying, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I started coaching right away. But see, this idea that I'm called a coach, I wouldn't have said prior to Strength Finder that I was a good coach. I don't think I was a natural coach. People may have come to me for ideas to solve problems, but that isn't necessarily a coaching mentality for me. So in the end, I rejoined a large corporation, I brought Strength Finder with me, and I slowly began to roll this out. In the meantime, I was coming to Gallup's workplace summits to learn about the tool. And what was great about that for me was I was hearing what the best companies in the world were doing to become the best companies in the world. And I was able to take that and bring that into my own interactions, not only with my customers, and my job at that time was to build strategic partnerships with a particular customer, but my own company at that point, the company I worked for. And so I started with a team of 250, and we did Strength Finder, and then it was all of Michigan. It was 1,200 people in this organization, and then it was around the world. And then before I knew it, we'd done like 80 workshops on Strength Finder. This is not my day job, by the way, right? So I partnered with a fellow who I don't think he's on this, but he will watch it and rerun, Khalid Raza, who's a man from India. He and I had this vision that we could create kind of this. I was tired of doing one-off webinars. I'm like, let's just do one webinar. We'll invite everybody.
Right.
And 6,000 people signed up. So that was an adventure in its own, which I won't go into. But we began to see the success, and it was, you guys know the drill. This Strength Finder is so nourishing. When people understand why they are rock stars, and we help them do more of that every day, that's all you really need to do, right, in terms of getting it launched. So we were in the process of going even bigger than that. And it was an organic growth movement, from the grounds up, groundswelling, and it got the attention of some executives, and that was kind of the end of that, because it wasn't necessarily embraced like we were embracing it. So it's that was the bad news, but that was over like a 4-year time period, and in between that, I went to 3 Gallup summits. I got some strength training through another person. I read everything I could. I was becoming the best me on strengths that I could possibly become, and I had all this practice. So the outcome of that process, even though I was never paid a dime to do all those workshops and do that strengths training with leadership teams from around the world, I learned that far and wide, so from Singapore to San Francisco, high and low, general manager of a country down to the newest employee, everybody did not know their strengths and loved learning them, and that there was value in that process. So the validation I got through all that and the practice I got through that. So I started turning outward and doing this on my own about 1.5 years ago, more on my own rather than trying to make my company become a strength-based company. And that has led to some wonderful engagements that I've had with some hospitals, banks, large companies, small companies, high-tech companies, and so then I became certified in the EP10, and then about less than a month ago, the accelerated strengths coaching. So I hope that is the last, I don't know, hope it's the last you see of me, but I hope it's the last dollar you get out of me. It's been worth every penny, though, I have to say. Great journey.
That's fantastic. And it's so great to hear the story, because one of the things I'd like to touch on, you and I hadn't really talked about this before, is I love how you're talking about your own journey as a coach. And I think sometimes people have been in roles where, like you said, they've problem solved with people. So when you talk to them about coaching, they say, oh yeah, I know how to coach. And yet you're someone who had an experience with StrengthsFinder that kind of turned a light on. What was it, when you think about how you've improved as a coach, what was it that it unveiled to you about you that's allowed you to advance your practices as a coach?
That is a great question. I think what it's given me faith and a little bit of fearlessness. I wouldn't say I'm fearless, because that just feels too something, and I don't like that. But I'm a little bit fearless. It is that I now know that my individualization, combined with my ideation, combined with my strategic, combined with my self-assurance, combined with Maximizer, is one heck of a package. And I don't care what your problem is. When we look at it from that lens, and my success depends on your success. So all I care is that you're successful. That's one of my criteria for an engagement. I don't care what is success. Let's figure it out. Let's let's smell it, let's describe it, let's paint it, and then let's go after it with your rock star strengths. So I know now why I can do that, and I do it well. But it's my lens. It's not anybody else's lens. So
yeah.
When I was at training, there was a woman I worked with discipline and consistency, which are like way down for me naturally, right? And I'm like, there's no such thing as the same coaching session twice in a row. The same work. I never give the same workshop the same way ever. Even if it's the same material, it's not. And she's like, no, everyone should have the same experience. I'm like, no one should have the same experience. So I could actually appreciate what she brings to the table, and that she's going to have a fairness and a way of doing it that with structure. But that is not my lens. That's her.
Right.
She'll get them to the same spot. She'll just do it differently.
Absolutely. And you said something interesting that we talk about how people, it's your talent that creates that filter for the world around you. And I love that concept, because I do think it helps people begin to back up and kind of say, oh, well, that's interesting. That's why I look at it in that way. So I think that's a great pointer right there, as other coaches are thinking about conversing with people about their strengths, is really what's that filter.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about this idea, and this is kind of out in left field, so I apologize, but it's been coming up recently as people have talked about the idea that, I already talked about my strengths. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, I got the results, and yeah, I've already talked to somebody about my strengths. What have you seen in the experiences you've had where you've had ongoing coaching experiences with people? How have you seen the lights go on for them when they've talked about their strengths multiple times?
Gosh, that's a great question. And there is definitely that journey, right? And if you rob yourself of that, that's just too darn bad, because there's so many things that can come from that conversation. If my friend Sharon Horbeck is on the line, I've worked with her a little bit, and I watched her go from rock star and kind of knew it, and rock star and know it, and rock star to regulate it, and rock star with theme dynamics. That is completely different dialogue than I know my strengths. And so we have explored how she can dial up and dial down, how she partners with others at work to so that she's most effective and most successful in her world. And then at the same time, honoring the strengths of those around her so they're most successful in their world. So that it just doesn't happen through reading your insight guide, which of course is a wonderful experience, right? That's where we all begin. I don't mean to diminish that, but that's a little bit like saying, here's your one vitamin, and that's all you have to do to be healthy for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
Just doesn't. There's just so much more to it than that, to the journey, if you're willing to go there. And I, have my own platform actually goes far beyond that, and I have to say it's that lonely mile. Not many people are willing to make that journey. It's either they're distracted, or they're not sure of the payoff. And I think, boy, that internal journey that requires, and that you give to yourself, that internal journey, to me, that's a huge payoff.
Now, you mentioned a little bit in your intro that you had recently, because you'd had a long history with Gallup and in different scenarios, but you just recently went to one of the latest accelerated strengths coaching sessions and one of the courses. When you think about that journey, people might think, wow, you'd done all those things in the past already, and all those sessions that you talked about leading and all the things you learned from that. What did you take away from your latest experience? What new ahas did you have, if any?
Oh my gosh, huge ones. And I can't emphasize enough that I have been trained through another coach on Strength Finder. It was nothing like the Gallup experience. So I was able to stay 15 steps ahead of my customers when I did it on my own, with learning the Gallup workplace and reading and practicing. I know a lot. I do know a lot from that, and you can't take that away at the same time. It's a little bit like giving a master craftsman, which I'm not saying I am, but a new set of tools that they then build a house in a different manner as a result of being able to have those tools. So it also helped me in my own journey. The theme dynamics, the strengths pairings stuff. And if you guys are listening, if you haven't been certified, if you like Kurt's theme overture, imagine that for 5 days. Because, man, you learn a lot in that 5 days. And so I learned about myself. I learned more about others. I learned how I can take coaching to a deeper level. Now it's my profession. before it was I wanted to be selected to save the world at this large company, which was I realized was never going to happen, right? So it wasn't my profession, although I was dying to get there. Now it is. So do I not want to be the most knowledgeable I can be to help not just myself but my colleagues and my partners? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that just as a story to help other people who you are coaching to understand what a real investment means in yourself. So what a great example you can share with others when they're thinking about, no, I just need to talk to you once. It's kind of like I love your comment earlier. That's kind of like going to a personal trainer one time.
Yeah, that one time thing just doesn't make a practice. This is
right.
A practice.
I've learned everything I need, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me when you were talking too is when we talked about your strengths and your themes as your filter, what put you on the journey to the business ethics focus? So when you think about your own strengths, was there something in the mix that helped direct you there, or was this something else that put you down that path?
It's funny. I started actually with business ethics. I started at in 2004 or 5. I went to a conference in Colorado that was the business ethics, how to teach business ethics or something like that. And I was the only non-academic there, by the way. And so that was interesting because I am not of the academic mindset where you tell people what to do, but you don't do it yourself. Please forgive me if that insults anybody, but I got into it there. I'll tell you, I got into it with them because they're like, every company should have a code of conduct and everyone should follow it. And yet most universities don't have a code of conduct for the professors. They have them for the kids. They don't have it for the professors. And so I even raised my hand at one point and I said, it's kind of hard for me to take that you want the guy on the line at General Motors to agree to a code of conduct when you won't do it yourself. So I'm not sure I made myself any friends that day, but from there I got to leadership and business ethics. And the reason I laugh about the ethics part is I'm in a part of America, for better or for worse, where near Detroit. It's the city that's had ethics problems forever. I got nowhere as an ethics business. Well, thank God I had an interest in Strength Finder and leadership because I'm trying to talk to people about ethics and they're like, oh my God, you're worse than the IRS. I'm thinking that. So anyhow, but I've always felt that there is a right way to lead. And from that I mean morally. And I don't mean one set of ethical principles, but to me it's like accounting. We teach our business people accounting principles to make business decisions. You can do this, you can do that. They're both valid accounting principles.
Yeah.
If we took the same thing with ethics and said, here, walk around this problem from an ethical standpoint, look at it from these 6 directions, and then think about what's the best thing to do. Instead, every time you mention ethics, people think it's, you're talking about God or you're trying to enforce some sort of a religion on them. And I'm like, I think it's a little bit different than that, but okay. So, I am responsibility at 9 or something like that. So there's an element of that. But I look for more as a maximizer. You're a better leader if you're a leader who leads with integrity.
That's great. That's great. That's really great. Well, let's talk about some of your personal coaching experiences, and I'm gonna throw a little bit of a curveball at you here because I'm gonna have you look at it through a different lens. Maureen's like, really? Why'd I draw this guy as the interviewer?
No, that's okay. It's all good. I like left field and curveballs. I'm a big baseball fan.
You just keep making me think of new things. So I want you to think about some of the client experiences that you've had and tell me what you have learned most from a client versus the other way around. And it can be one specific client experience or coachee experience, or it could be kind of in general. What's been kind of your biggest learning sitting on the other side of the table as the coach?
Well, I think the advantage of being a coach is getting a view to the lens of the other person, right? Yeah. And understanding the world from their point of view. I always say the world is the world. But your point of view is different from my point of view. The world isn't any different, right? Yeah. Sun's where it is. The air's where it is. It's raining somewhere. It is what it is. Yeah. So I have to say that the benefit I've had from even with some of the people that are on the call today is seeing the world from their lens, from their point of view, and valuing that, which is really what we all need as people, and being allowed to bring that very best to bear. But I will say this, and I'm dying to talk about this coaching thing that I did with a hockey team. So just real quickly to let the people on the conference call know, or the webinar, I had the opportunity on 2 days' notice to work with a high school hockey team. It's called Cranbrook School. It's in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. It's a very, very prestigious school, and they were a hockey team, very talented hockey team that was struggling. And the question that was put to me was, would Strength Finder help? So first of all, I can't even think of a problem where Strength Finder doesn't help.
Right.
So of course the answer is yes. But I had never coached any high school boys and not a group, and there's a hockey coach, and I was just like, go for it. And so I talked to the coach. We had one conversation, and then I went to the locker room and met the boys. And first of all, that place was pristine. And these high school boys, I had 100% attention. So where the story is going to go is on the coach, because boy, did I learn a lot from this coach. And so we first defined what success looked like to them. Yes, they wanted to win the state championships, but then you begin to probe, well, does the how matter? Oh, yes, the how matters. Well, what does the how look like? And the commitment to one another and brotherhood and respect. And so then a week later, so we built the success statement. A week later, by a week later, they had taken the Strength Finder. And so 25 people, including 3 coaches, and 18 of them had competition. There was 12 futuristic, 12 restorative, achiever, significance. There was so much horsepower in that room with those talented boys. And I'm watching this coach who's got to masterfully take these, each of them as a sports car, right? And help align that behind the success statement. And we did that in a workshop. And I will always be grateful that the coach let me run it, because he had command, has command. And he very easily could have said, we'll do it this way. And I would have, of course, gone along with that because he's the client. But to make a long story short, we went from, and then I want to tell you what I learned about the coach. They went from talented and struggling to talented and state champs in 6 weeks. They went 11 and what after we had the workshop or something like that. The payoff to me from the boys' standpoint, and the boys were fabulous, respectful, full attention when we had a 2.5-hour workshop on strengths. They were all in, and it was a joy to watch. And the competition thing, were they competing against one another, or were they competing against the opposing team? And it's a complicated environment with that much talent in the room. That's pretty high horsepower. So in the end, they won, and some of the boys came to me in the lobby when they saw me, and they had not seen me for 6 weeks. I didn't go out there and score any goals, none of that kind of thing. I didn't say, how's it going? They were focused on winning, and I was going to let them do their thing. So when they came to me and said that was the turning point in their season, so it just had huge payoff for me when the boys came up to me on their own and said that. And then later I met with a coach, because I was real curious what happened after we did the strengths workshop and when they won. So and I have to say, if you have a kid who's interested in hockey, playing for Coach Weidenbach on the Cranbrook High School team would be a really great opportunity, because you're going to learn a great deal. And he told me how he wouldn't let them quit with just the competition. He found a way for each boy to pick some of the other strengths to become a specific role on that team. So Coach has individualization and command and strategic and some other strengths that allowed him to do that. And so what I gave him was the tool to do then what he did best, which was bring out the best in those boys. And he didn't want a successful team for the sake of a successful team. He's had all kinds of accolades. I got so lucky. He's a former Red Wings coach on the team there. He's done all this wonderful, amazing things as a hockey coach. But what he wanted was for them to be great men as a result of working under him. And so, but when he told me what he'd done with each of the boys and how he helped them shape those roles, and then they were asked to go out and do that on the ice, it gets back to your Q12, what is expected of me at work. These boys knew then how they could play a role, and they were tapped into their strengths to get it done. And it was all to his credit, because he did not have a discussion with me about this. He did this on his own. And then he did tell me that he had exit interviews with each boy. So again, back to the coach being amazing. Who has exit interviews with each boy every year, even if they're coming back? And most of them, without provocation, said that the strengths thing was one of the biggest things that helped him. And then when he asked the others, they said absolutely that was one of it. So just really, to go from 6 weeks to not even being engaged to them winning the state champ, it was one of the most fast, fun things I'd ever experienced with strengths, right? At the same time, I got to watch and respect Coach Weidenbach for how he managed those kids with that information, with the Strength Finder information, so that they could be successful in their own right. And as a team then, align behind that success statement and win that championship.
I love that story. That's
Until I'm all wound up.
I know, it's like so cool. That's probably my favorite story. And it's great. You gave me the little commercial before, but that is outstanding. I also love that, like you said, that compressed amount of time that you had to get in and get moving, and I love the perspective of something bigger than we. right? And it's like it's and obviously bigger than me, you know. So it's me and it's the we, but it's the purpose. So what a fantastic story. What did you as a coach take away from that personally? What did you capture from that that you'll take with you moving forward? Because what a wonderful success story for them.
Yeah. It validated the approach I always have, which is what does success look like? I didn't go in there and say, you guys all need to know your strengths and then you'll be rock stars.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why are we here? I always like the why are we here thing. That's my personal way of beginning any conversation, whether it's a executive committee or whether it's an individual. It's the same question. What does success look like and why do we care? How do we measure it? How do we know we're making progress? So that sort of thing. But the experience of working with Coach and watching a very disciplined man bring his craft, add Strength Finder to his craft, makes me want to work with more Coach Weidenbachs. And I don't know that there's that many of them out there. And he and I are going to continue to take over the world. At least that's my plan, and we've kind of agreed to that. But the partnership that comes from that was great. I'll never know hockey, and I don't know high school boys, right? How to work with them. He's got that. So let's partner, and we'll be awesome. So I'm very much, and I view Gallup as a partner. That's the other thing I recommend you get certified. Why you get certified? The partnerships and the relationships I've had from meeting with Gallup people on a lonely journey, because frankly, you know, when you're trying to push a strengths movement uphill and there aren't many people on your side, it's, you know, it's kind of lonely. So you guys have given me the support and kindness, and Kurt Liesveld was a teacher, Blanca Garcia, you know, this fireball of talent, Benjamin Erickson, he couldn't have been kinder. When he speaks to you, you feel like he's got his arm around you and he's not even touching you, but you have the sense of this kindness that emanates from the man, you know. So those are experiences that I haven't had a lot of. So that was really great for me. So
that's awesome. I'd love to hear that. Now that was just you just gave us some tips about focusing on success, and we always like to ask, you know, if there are other tips and tricks and great application components that you put into play as a coach. Do you have others that you would be willing to share that you think would be helpful to the coaches out there? Let
me pull my list, which is all of 3. But I've got something to add to it, because I want to talk about STEM, because I personally believe as an engineer there's a STEM aspect of this that's being overlooked, and I want to address that. But so first of all, be a SME, be a subject matter expert. I have been challenged. I did some work this past week with medical doctor executive committee, and they were challenging this tool. And if I hadn't had the experience or read about it or the self-confidence, I might have melted. And we did one-on-one coaching ahead of time, and this one doctor began to draw this diagram, and he's like, from an aptitude standpoint, if your number 1 is context, it's my 34 could be better than your number 1, and Joe over here might have it at 16, he could be better than us both. I'm looking at it going, yes. Actually, that's true. It's why it's not a selection tool. And so, you know, we had a conversation about it, but he even said when I left, which it didn't occur to me at the time, he said, I've seen a lot of people melt under that kind of questioning about an assessment. So the medical community, it never occurred to me that they might be more demanding, which it should have. So, and I'll talk about STEM in just a minute because that's part of it. Be a SME, become certified, know you really well, know yourself really well, and then figure out through lots of practice how you can help as many people as possible using the strengths. But you got to know the tool and you got to know the stuff well. So I recommend the certification process for that. My rule number 1 is be more focused on my client's success than my success. That's rule number 1. And I'll climb the mountain with them, but I got to know what the mountain is. So first we define the mountain, then I'm with you, and we have success when you have success. Whether it's getting a new job, merging 3 companies together, launching a startup, those are all things where it's different mountains, and I'm there on the journey, but we have to know what that is, and then we bring strengths in as the launching point, basically, right? Yeah. And then embrace detours. You know, there are times like even with me today, we've had a couple of little detours, right? And if it's more effective, which it is, then embrace that, because it may be part of their success, the journey they need to make. So while you may have a plan, you should have a plan, and it's through your lens, understand that we may go left instead of right and you just got to go with it if it's what's best for them, for their success. So I think people always want my formula or what my this or that is. I have a vision, I have a mission, I have a purpose. I have done a lot of internal work to make me who I am today as a success coach. But you got to know what that is and then be ready to work with the clients.
Love that. You know, I'll tell you, isn't it funny how often the detours end up being better than the journey that you
Yeah,
had planned, right?
so much better than the journey. And in the end, they get to judge the value of the experience with you.
Right.
And it's not you
Absolutely.
judging it, it's them judging it in the end.
That's outstanding.
But I want to talk about the detour thing a little bit because um, I do believe, and while of course I enjoy everybody I've coached with, and this hockey team was a blast, but I believe that one of my main focus in my practice is on the STEM part of the world because I think thinkers are underserved and undervalued. And I have done a lot of training with people in the IT world, engineers, medical, startups, blah, 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 blah. And they are software companies, they are thinkers first, doers, relators, and influencers after.
Yeah.
So I believe that I'm building a good practice around helping the STEM people of the universe value their thinking because we can't see, and here's another reason to use StrengthsFinder, forgive the commercial, but I don't know any other assessment that tells me the 8 different ways you think to solve problems. Nobody else tells me that. They might know you're thinking, but they don't know what the heck's going on inside your head. And for me to know that and value that and leverage that, that's a huge, huge value proposition because so much of our growth is going to be in the world of technology. So let's help these thinkers become, by partnering with others or whatever, become more effective at bringing that research out, at bringing that information out. My brother, who's an engineer as well, he works with the Michigan Technology University up in the Upper Peninsula, and one of the research fellows there was saying to him is no one listens to researchers. Well, that's because the influencing is, this group of doctors that I worked with, 7 people, only one had one influencing strength. They were
Yeah.
a herd of thinkers first. They're influencing later, but they aren't out there giving a rock star communication presentation. They're thinking, and then they're writing, and then they're research, and then then all that other stuff can come to play. But we have to honor that because thinkers are the navigators of our universe. When you value execution more than you value thinking, off you go over the ledge because you didn't have the navigator with strategic and futuristic saying, turn left now, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that was
Now
my STEM rant.
you use the STEM. Explain STEM.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Science, science, technology, engineering, and math, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the lack of it's what we're losing in America, and they're gaining in China and other
Yeah.
places. In other words, the focus on engineering, technology,
Yep.
science, et cetera, et cetera. So
Perfect.
that's where my engineering does help a little bit because I'm not intimidated by the technology. I get
Yeah.
it. I don't engage in that part of it. I'm here to help them be more effective with strengths, but I do understand and value the technology.
I love how you just explained that though, because I do think you're right that so often, um, and here's the other issue I've seen is that so often you have highly technical people, very strong horsepower that end up in a role of leadership.
Mhm.
And it's almost like they're sitting in the middle of the ocean on a dinghy without any kind of motor or oars because they're being asked to build relationships, they're being asked to lead.
Mhm.
And I think as a coach it's just a fascinating journey to help them go on to realize you can use this curiosity you have about all things technical
Right.
to be curious about all things people.
That's right.
And so it's been a fascinating thing to see when someone high in input or learner or whatever the theme might be realizes when they direct that same curiosity at the people around them, they start to
Mhm.
realize, wow, there's a
Yeah.
whole new world of discovery here that I can have that has to do with relationship.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of conversations you have in that accelerated coaching class as well. It's another reason to go. One of the women, I was one woman in that, and there was only one other woman in that doctors executives meeting that we had, and she said, "I've been told I need to have more command." So command is down here, right? And I said, well, what they mean is impact. So let's look at impact. And she's got focus and achiever and arranger and significance. I said we can make command out of that. You don't have to be General Patton, right?
Right.
You can we can create impact out of this instead. So exactly, helping them see that how to overcome what they don't have with what they do have and
Right.
leveraging that. And that feels so much better. It's not just a philosophical discussion. It's a real discussion.
Yeah, it feels better than saying go get some command.
Yeah, go buy some command and 6-pack of command. Open up some.
Six pack. So, Maureen, you've talked a lot about go get certified. you've mentioned that several times.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But talk to me about your recent experience. You did the Accelerated Strengths course, and you did the EP10, which some people may not have any idea what that is. So I know you're excited about talking about those two experiences and talking about the connection. So help people out there know where your head's at in regard to those elements.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you are a strength coach that's starting your own business, you should take the Entrepreneurial Profile 10. And what it is, and this is my version here, so feel free to, I have my own version of what I think the EP10 is. The Entrepreneurial Profile 10 is a role-based strengths tool. In other words, it is evaluating your ability to do the 10 things that a successful entrepreneur slash startup company with multiple people must do to be successful, not just as a startup, but to achieve that growth to become like a Fortune 500 company. There's a path that has been proven. So my current business is my second business. I had my communications first with photography and writing, and now this is my second business. So I'm all in on entrepreneurial training. And here in Michigan, we believe it's the way of the future for a state that's frankly struggling, right? Yeah. Automotive, manufacturing, it's just not. We need more startups and more technology-based startups. So I took it because I wanted to use it here, but I also wanted to know what mine were, right? So I became certified in December on the EP10. So first let me talk about that, and then I'll say how I combine the two. Of course, the first person I could think of that I wanted to take the assessment that would be helpful for me to understand it from a coaching standpoint is my friend Barbara Cordy, who's a rock star, former colleague of mine, who I'd seen her do all kinds of entrepreneurial things inside of a large company. She's amazing. So she takes it, and what comes back? She's dominant in all 10. So the first person I coached, which not very many people, 2% of the population is dominant in all 10, right? Less than 5%. And I have 7 dominant, 2 supporting. I'm not very good at delegating and promoting. I'm terrible at promoting myself. And I don't have a lot of business focus. As far as I'm concerned, we can shake hands and I know you'll pay me, okay? So my first experience with coaching was coaching Barbara Cordy. And I'm like, I think we should switch chairs because you're the rock star here and I'm the less than stellar entrepreneurial person on my own. But it was really good to work with her to understand how she'd seen her success in the past, link with that. So then we've also unlocked her 34. So what I find helpful is to start with Strength Finder first for the whole team. And I've done this with a high technology company in Indiana called Cloud One. And Cloud One is the fastest growing technology company in the state. And so we've looked at the strengths of this fast-growing, high-paced team, and then we're going to go back and look with just the leadership team and maybe the board of directors, what their entrepreneurial profile looks like. So you don't want to do the entrepreneurial profile on a whole company unless it's a very small group of people and everybody's responsible for making that company a success, right? So you want to do it with the people that are going to be the entrepreneurs. But all roads begin with strengths, and then I think you figure out how we link their strengths to those 10 things that are required. So my friend Barbara, I wrote down her top 10 strengths, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So mind you, she's dominant in all 10 of the risk-taking, creative thinking, all these 10 things that a great entrepreneur must do, determination, relationship building. She's dominant in all those. But she's got individualization, maximizer, arranger. So she's got this kind of make things great, see people as individual, but have the organizational performance as well, the arranger. Futuristic, so she's looking over the horizon, which an entrepreneur would do. Focus, so she's got this business focus thing down. Relator, learner, and then of course command, competition, and activator kick in. So when you look at her top 10, we don't try to go one-to-one to different EP10, but we can see how these combined make this woman an amazingly talented entrepreneur. Could be, right, if she chose that road. Now, she was very successful when allowed to behave like an entrepreneur inside that company. And you can see why. She started up programs, made them global. She was amazing. So, and the same thing will happen with Cloud One when we have a look at them. But the journey begins with a strength finder for everybody in the organization, and then we go back and add the EP10. Otherwise, I think the EP10 is not quite enough. We don't know. The EP10 is what they do to be successful. The strength finder is how they achieve success in each of those 10 things.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. Plus, it helps them get their hands around what it is that they need to aim themselves at.
Correct.
If they're on that entrepreneurial journey, right?
Right. It's like I need help with promotion. I'm low in promoting, right? So I can either hope to be better, which I won't be, or I can work with partners who can help me with that, right? So.
Partners are key. I learned that lesson a long time ago. Excellent. So I'm gonna ask Jim to jump in here and see if we've had any questions rolling in for our friend Maureen. Jim?
Yeah, and Maureen, let me be your promoter. That's two for me, right? So determination number one, promoter number two.
Gosh, you're the
And I
best.
should well map those to woo and communication, right? For me on the
True.
StrengthsFinder side, and that especially on the promoter side, those fit. We haven't officially, we have some folks talking about how we map EP10 to StrengthsFinder. It's in the early stages. It's a question I get all the time. Or like, hey, where's the document? We're still thinking about that. So there's some really smart people doing some science around that, some thinking, some validation on it. So if you're wondering, that's a question I get in the Facebook group all the time. By the way, we won't have time to get to all the questions. So if you are listening and I don't get to your question, take it out to the Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/call-to-coach. If you're listening to the recorded version of it, join us out there. Great group, about 3,700 people now in that group. Actually, the conversations are even with that many people, the conversations are very rich. Mm-hmm. So you might want to join us out there as well. Carol Ann was asking, Maureen, where's your consistency in your...
Mine is 41. So individualization is in my top 5, and so by nature, you would learn this in the whole certification. She may have already done this. It's low. It's statistically likely to be low consistency. So it's 30. It's been 32 or 33. I've taken the StrengthsFinder twice. It's either been dead last or next to dead last. Yeah, I can't make a recipe. I can't follow it right the first time, let alone the second time.
Or maybe you don't even want to, right?
This is true. I have a better idea.
Yeah, I always tell people, for me, I get bored doing it the first time. It's like there's never a second time because I'm bored the first time I do it. So that's the exact same for me. You were talking about some workshop exercises, and it says, did you use the same workshop exercises with the students as you do with the corporate clients? When you're talking about the hockey versus your corporate clients.
I tended to, what I used was I went out, if you were to Google TJ Oshie, the answer is largely no, because of course I wouldn't do it the same way twice. But if you Google TJ Oshie, you would find that he has a secret sauce as a hockey player. And there's nobody better than TJ. He's as close as automatic as you can get to being, when he's one-on-one with a goalie, he wins. So if he's doing a penalty shot, he wins. When we beat the Russians in the last Olympics, there was a rule change from the NHL to the Olympics, and that was that you could send in a one-on-one, the guy against the goalie, you could send the same guy out more than once. That's why that man, the coach of the team, picked TJ Oshie, and that guy ruined the mind of that poor Russian goalie, because time after time after time after time, TJ Oshie came out and took him to lunch, to the point where he was draping his leg over the edge, and the goalie's going, insert any swear word, that guy's coming back out here and I have to face him again, right? So I worked on the boys finding what's their secret sauce, what's your TJ Oshie secret sauce, and some of it was when are you at your best. We looked at the insight guide, which you all do, right? Highlight the things that sound, and then they communicated with people that in small groups. So there was a little bit of that, but I really wanted it to be focused on something they could relate to.
In the chat room, back to the consistency question, many are saying the same thing, 30 and 34. Carol Ann, who had that question, says it's her 34.
Yay!
And actually,
I celebrate with you.
I've gotten a chance to work with Carol Ann a bunch over the last a couple months, and we're two peas in a pod. I'll put it that way. That's a little dangerous when the two of us get together.
Is Carol Ann the artist?
Yeah, she's the one who does the sketch notes.
She's amazing.
If you are in our Facebook group, that's another value of the Facebook group. For Theme Thursday, Carol Ann does sketch notes. Talk about using your strength in adding to the community value, right, in what we're doing. Yeah. She creates these great sketch notes for us, which are a summary of the Theme Thursday pieces. And it's a great way of using your strength in a crowd sense, or a crowdsourcing. I can't even get that sentence out. In a crowdsourcing methodology, and so we all value and benefit from that. Speaking of value and experience, how do you measure the value of an experience? That was a kind of a question that resonated with a few in chat. How do you how do you measure the value of an experience?
Well, I think it's personal, right? I think anytime you're tested on your craft in any way, shape, or form, that is shaping you like fire shapes steel, right? So those swords they weren't born that way. They were shaped by fire. And so to some degree, it's a matter of what you treasure. My friend Sharon and I have been, my friend Sharon out in the chat room, she introduced me to the idea of a success jar. And so she tracks her success every year throughout the year, and then New Year's Eve she looks at her success jar. So I've gotten better at saying, so I put down what that experience meant to me, what was great about it, and I'm putting it in my own little success jar for my friend Duncan in Nuremberg, which is another story. So the tracking that is a personal journey, but I think only you can decide what was useful. I don't think I've ever had an experience, whether it's coaching or a workshop, where I didn't gain from it.
We have here at Gallup, we have buckets that we give every employee when they come, very similar to your success jar. And every time someone writes you a drop, or for me it's a card or a note or any of those things, I throw that in my bucket physically as a reminder when we think about successes, right? That's when I'm having a bad day, I go back to the bucket, pull a few cards out randomly, read those, feel better about myself, and then move on. It's a great exercise. I'm really glad we do that. Of course, that's based on the book, How Full is Your Bucket? Just really kind of the way we do recognition here at Gallup, and great opportunity. Brian, we're out of time as we think. Anything you want to do as we wrap this up, our time here with Maureen?
Really, all I just want to do is say thank you, Maureen. It's always fascinating for me to hear the different perspectives from coaches. I think it's kind of like when we say to people, revisit your strengths with different people, and every time you do, you learn something new. And I think that with you, it was the same thing, that although I've been doing this nearly all my life, I always get smarter when I talk to smart people like you, always, just like you just said. So thanks so much for being with us. Very much.
Thank you.
Very
and
much
Jim, thank you. I'm thrilled. Couldn't be more thrilled. So thanks everybody.
You bet. Great to have you on. Thanks for all the work that you do in the community as well around these programs. We were joking about it earlier, but you really do spend a lot of time. You're the first one out here. Oftentimes, you're my sound check, which is great. It's very, very handy, very helpful to have that out there. You're very active in the chat room. If this is your first time to these programs, we record these every other Friday for Called to Coach, every other Thursday for Theme Thursday. We'd love to have you a part of our community. A very growing, very dynamic today of great numbers, 50 or so in the chat room. And so everybody out there, we do this live, and we get thousands to listen to them after the fact. You be one of those, listening to them. All kinds of ways for you to do that. I'll remind you the best way to do that is just head out to the coaches blog. Lots of great information, social information, how to get our apps, how to get on the Facebook group, how to watch these things on YouTube. All out there on the coaches blog. Just go to coaching.gallup.com. You can get all the resources that are available, including what we're saying now is rediscover your strengths. If you've lost touch with your top 5, love to have you jump in. Go to our strengths, the Gallup Strengths Center. So just Gallup-Strengthscenter.com. And if you took StrengthsFinder, use that email address and log in. If you can't remember either one of those, we've got some helps out there to help you get through that. There's a link all the way at the bottom that just says help, and there's some instructions there on how to get that. We'd love to have you log back in and rediscover those strengths. A great way to do that out there. Again, that's Gallup-Strengthscenter.com to get that done. We have on the coaches blog, we're doing meetups now all around the United States. We have some 20-some registered now out there. In fact, brand new one happening in Alaska, as well as I think, who else was it, Minneapolis? I think I'm working hard on getting one going there as well. We should dominate. We'd like 100 by the end of the year. So if you'd like to host one meetup group, strengths enthusiasts or certified coaches, both. We'd like to have both in there. Let us know. Let me know. Just on the send us a note, coaching@gallup.com. If you're going to get that started, we'll add it to our meetup page as well. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. And if you've enjoyed this, we'll encourage you to share it through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of those social platforms. Just get that shared. And we look forward to the next Call to Coach. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.